Newt Gingrich is here to respond to this. Mr. Speaker, I thought it was one of his best speeches today on foreign policy, and it was firm, and it was tough, and it was realistic and well thought out.
They have worked together as a team, and this is one of those things the elite media doesn't want to cover. But you had all the major elements of the cabinet. I mean, Tillerson, Mattis, McMaster, Kelly, Mnuchin at Treasury. Everybody was working together to develop this strategy. They spent weeks on it. They consulted carefully with key people in the Senate and the House. And the result is that they are, I think, announcing a very bold, very dramatic shift, but it's very nuanced. They didn't pull out of the deal at this point. They set the stage to either get a lot of stuff fixed or in the future pull out of the deal. They've got Treasury for the very first time engaged in taking on the Revolutionary Guard and cutting off their financial capabilities, which is a big step towards making this a government-wide operation. They announced clearly their determination to stop the Iranian effort to create all the way from Tehran to Lebanon and the Mediterranean, an Iranian-dominated world. And I think our allies in the region will be pleased. The Saudis and all the 55 countries who came to meet with the president in Riyadh, I think they will all be pleased by this speech and feel that it really sets the tone for taking on the Iranians.
Well, I agree with you wholeheartedly, and I think the crackdown on the Revolutionary Guard is clear. Netanyahu has congratulated the president, so clearly there's just the beginning of support from those in the region. There's been this emerging alliance between Israel, Saudi Arabia, the Egyptians, and the Jordanians. I had the opportunity when he was in town for the United Nations to sit down with the president of Egypt, El-Sisi, and get into this in detail. He clearly seems to be one of the few that really understands the danger of radical Islam and has very courageously taken it on.
Well, of course, he gave a speech last year to the most prestigious university in the Muslim world, and he said to all these gathered professors, look, you are the people who have to fix this. You've allowed us to scare the world, and we cannot continue to go down this road. He was very tough, very direct, and I thought made a lot of sense, and he has shown enormous courage. And as you know, in my new novel, Vengeance, we have Mossad and the Saudis both working with the United States to try to stop terrorists who've gotten nuclear material from North Korea. And I think that represents the future. I think you're going to see all of these other countries coming together. The big divide is no longer Israel versus the Arabs. The big divide is Israel and the Arabs versus Iran and versus the terrorists. And that is an enormous change in the world. And I thought Trump today did a superb job of laying it out in a calm, clear, I thought very well delivered speech. And I thought his outline of the history of that period was very good. I'd actually written a paper a couple of weeks ago that circulated at the White House talking about death to America, which is what they were chanting in the parliament in Iran when they were passing their military budget. I'm going to publish a new version of it tomorrow because, the president did exactly what I thought he should do. And I want to praise him, and I want to praise the entire team because they all worked together to make this possible.
President's had a pretty amazing week when you think of his executive order on health care and how it would allow, for example, it's legal now for corporations that have different offices in different states. They're not beholden to state law. They're not beholden to the mandates of the ACA or Obamacare. And now he has expanded it and allowing any group of people, cooperative, whatever, or trade organization to do the exact same thing, which means that they then can have more purchasing power as a group, that they'd have more options because they could buy across state lines. They could add healthcare cooperatives as a part of the solution, and catastrophic care, which is illegal under Obamacare, is now legal in this instance. I mean, that's a big week. Then, of course, you have him taking on the Iranians. The only thing that, and again, the president has laid forth his economic plan this week. And the only variable here is he's done everything he can do on his own. Will the Senate now pass this tax plan?
Well, and let me also remind everyone that this week you had Secretary Mattis, who's a retired Marine four-star general of absolutely impeccable ethics and honesty, who said that the reports in the press about President Obama being irresponsible about nuclear weapons were totally false. Then you had General Kelly, a four-star Marine of impeccable credentials, come in as chief of staff and say, you guys get things so wrong that I'm embarrassed for you, and I kind of recommend you get better sources. And talking to the White House press corps, I mean, what better evidence could you have that this is not a Trump problem, this is a news media problem, than to have two guys of this caliber. And then last week you had Rex Tillerson say, where I came from, we didn't cover junk. And I can't believe you guys are spending your time covering this kind of junk, talking directly to the Washington press corps again. I thought in that sense that beginning to communicate here as a team, they're working as a team. They've produced a bold new strategy for Iran, which is a big deal. They're methodically working on the health system in ways that are very powerful. And by the way, they're being very constitutional. I mean, the decision they announced about requiring Congress to appropriate the money to subsidize low-income health care recipients, that's a constitutional decision. And people say, oh, gee, this is really bad. Well, yeah, it actually requires the Congress to do it. But that's what the Constitution requires. And I thought the president was exactly right in what he did. And I think it will give real impetus to Senator Lamar Alexander and Patty Murray in the bipartisan effort they've already started. But he again and again, he's coming back. Ironically, for liberals who worry about him, I did the Monk debate in Toronto last night with 3,000 Canadians, and my two liberal opponents.
Yeah, how'd that go? I meant to ask you.
Yeah, it was great fun. It was on C-SPAN. It was streamed, and it also was on Canadian Broadcasting Live, and it was a great debate. And our two liberal opponents were talking about how Trump's going to be an autocrat, and we kept saying, wait a second. Trump is the guy who said he couldn't solve the problem of the dreamers under the Constitution. The Congress had to do its job. He's the guy who's saying you can't build the wall unless Congress gives him the money. He's not going out by executive order. Obama would have written an executive order. So Trump's actually obeying the Constitution and is actually circumscribing the presidency. He's a very strong president, but he's very strong within the Constitution. And I think that's just a remarkable thing that people consistently in the elite media refuse to cover.
All right, stay right there. We'll take a break. We'll come back with Newt Gingrich. By the way, his brand new book is in bookstores just out this week. It's destined, I'm sure, to be another big bestseller, and it's called Vengeance. And Newt has a travel schedule if you want to find out where you can go see him. And he's signing books and giving speeches. It's at Hannity.com. All right, as we continue with former Speaker of the House Newt Gingrich, his new novel is out. It's called Vengeance. Was speaking last night at the University of Toronto. Who were you debating with last night? And it was 2-on-2, or
it's an auditorium, and it is. They sell tickets, and they sold them out in 1 hour for 3,000 people. Wow. It was a great audience, and it's called the Monk Debates, M-U-N-K, after Peter Monk, who funded it and organized it. I think this is the 14th or 15th year. I was very lucky on my side. I had Kim Strassel, who writes for the Wall Street Journal, is just a remarkably bright woman and did a great job. The other side you'll love, Andrew Sullivan and E.J. Dionne. Wow. And if you ever get a chance, watch it with the sound off and watch these two guys melt down. They get so frenzied and so frantic. At one point, the moderator had to step in and say, no, let's everybody calm down. And they were they were so deeply, vehemently, viciously anti-Trump that I was actually a little surprised. Yeah, and not that, it was emotional. It was in their gut. They were jumping up and down. They were so excited. And I kept getting calmer the more they would get excited. So it was kind of fun, actually.
Wow. Now, the crowd was probably predisposed against you, correct?
Well, they were pretty much so. They were about 2-1 against me, but that was better. Last year, Laura Ingraham and I went up there, and the question was Trump or Hillary in Canada before the election. Well, we started the night last year at 86-14. Wow. We moved it up to 80-20, and everybody at the reception afterwards said to me, what a great victory. That's so amazing that you did that. So last night we also gained ground. We weren't as bad off. We started at something like 67-33, and we brought them down a good distance. But you're right. Although I did say to the crowd at one point, I said, look, you are a much better crowd than folks would be at Berkeley. That was sort of
you actually could get a word in a sentence out, so that makes it a better crowd by its very nature.
No, but it's a great debate. They do it every year. They do one a year, and I've done it 3 times. And I'm impressed with people. Really, we don't have anything quite like it in the U.S. People want to come and hear both sides. They love the debate format. It's been great.
You see, I've always been confident. And if you take a comedian out of the equation, because comedians are difficult to debate because they can flip on a dime and all of a sudden, you've literally made the best point you could possibly make against any argument they have. And then they just start telling jokes and everyone forgets the great point you made. But, if it's a head-on debate, and knowing Andrew Sullivan and E.J. Dionne, this was like, taking candy from a baby. Why do I suspect that you probably won the crowd over because they couldn't respond. They're just, a lot of what they are arguing against Trump is emotional.
Well, actually, it would be a great case study for somebody who wanted to look at debate styles. And, because Sullivan, is a very smart guy and was the head of the Oxford Union,
right. No,
which is probably the greatest debating. I mean, he's a very, very good debater, but his emotions, both of them, I was really surprised. Both of them, their emotions got to them so deeply. I mean, don't take my word for it. Anybody who's listening to us, you can go online and find it at C-SPAN, or you can find it at monkdebates.com, and just watch it. And that's what surprised me. I mean,
all right, Mr. Speaker, if you want to find out about the Speaker's new book, Vengeance, it's on Hannity.com. He's going to be going around the country and giving speeches. And
by the way, remember, they should also look for Ellis the Elephant.
Yes.
And remember the ladies, Callista's latest book, which she's not allowed to talk about because she's now becoming an ambassador.
She's becoming, and you're going to be the Mr. Ambassador.
So,
I want to know what the rules are for that. Good luck to you.
We'll do a show on it sometime.
All right. Thank you, sir. It's good to talk to you.